Mama.
Yes?
What are you making?
I'm making breakfast plus Peak 456 growing up milk.
Breakfast plus Peak 456 growing up milk?
It is fortified with DHA to support brain development.
Tell me more.
Cereal, pap, just mean it. My kids love it with Peak 456 growing up milk.
Wonderful.
It also has calcium, vitamin D, and high quality protein to make your kids grow strong.
I love it. I will start nourishing my children with Peak 456 growing up milk, fortified with DHA to support brain development.
That's right.
Grow up strong and smart with Peak 456 growing up milk every day.
Talk radio.
95.1 FM.
This is Today 95.1 FM. To copy this tune, press 9.
This is Today 95.1 FM.
For current news and information, press 5.
They are politicians, all of them. They know what they do.
So they know how they attack each other.
To stay connected all day, press 1.
The person who raised the name is the one who made the public know about.
Good afternoon and welcome to the World News on your premium talk radio station.
We are your premium talk radio station. Today 95.1 FM. The station with a unique dial.
Don't worry you.
We're passionate about it.
We love talking.
We are
your number one talk radio station. 95.1 FM.
Did you know that there are over 8 million listeners connected to our frequency, covering 6 states across 2 geopolitical zones? Take advantage of our reach and advertise your products, services, events, and businesses on Today 95.1 FM. Get value for your money as millions of people get to know about your business. Give us a call now on 0818-389-2850. Again, 0818-389-2850.
Every day, we hear reports about counterfeit products, stories of fake drugs, foods, expired goods and other consumables being manufactured, imported and sold to unsuspecting members of the public. Findings reveal that Africa records at least 100,000 deaths from fake drugs-related ailments yearly. These fake and substandard products, particularly drugs, have been considered a global threat to human lives. And despite efforts by authorized agencies in Nigeria to combat the menace, the Nigerian market remains flooded with different unwholesome products. This is a plea to all those who manufacture and sell these goods to desist. Stop this menace of counterfeit products. Let's place value on human lives. And should you have purchased a counterfeit product or unsatisfied with the product, please contact SON or Consumer Protection Agency. This message is powered by Today 95.1 FM, the voice of the people.
95.1 FM, voice of the people.
And we're back.
Past 8 a.m. Welcome to today's quest on Today 95.1 FM. Today is May 8th. Yes, it's the 8th day in the month of May 2023. How are you doing this Monday morning? It's a beautiful, fantastic Monday morning. And I hope that you're set, ready for the week and, of course, for the entire month. If you're not ready, well, I don't know what you're waiting for. I don't know what you've been doing over the weekend. I mean, what did you even do over the weekend? Did you spend time to prepare for the week ahead? Did you spend time to prepare for the month ahead? I mean, okay, well, I think you should have prepared for the month ahead before last weekend. But if you didn't, you know how some people are like, okay, I will do it this morning. I will do it in the afternoon. Okay, I will do it later in the day. And then all of the day will come and go. They were not able to do anything. They didn't do anything. And so they will push it forward to the next day. I will do it tomorrow. Don't worry, I will do it tomorrow. Tomorrow would come and they would do the same procrastination. They wouldn't do anything about it until tomorrow will come and go. So for the people who didn't prepare for the month ahead, well, you still have time. Today is 8. You still have time. Do not say, well, it's already 8, so I wouldn't prepare for the month. You can go ahead and do that right about now. You can do it today. Don't push it forward, okay? Do it today. Get ready. And you know how they say, if you prepare on time, whatever it is you're doing, if you prepare, you're going to, get it, maybe not 100% right, but there is a higher percentage that you're going to get it right, okay? So do prepare at all times to avoid that fire brigade approach that, usually people attribute to Nigeria, like Nigeria would love to, adopt that fire brigade approach. We shouldn't. Prepare on time, whatever it is you're doing, be it the month, the year, or even the day. Prepare on time so you don't get stranded, okay? Or you don't get to a certain point and be like, okay, I don't know what to do at this point. Prepare on time. That being said, my name is Faustina Oputu, okay? Welcome once again to today's Quest and today 95.1 FM, Voice of the People. The papers we have are all up there on Facebook. Get onto our Facebook page, Today 95.1 FM. Read the papers, okay? We've taken our time to put the links together up there so you can just click and go to a story, read through the story, and drop your comments accordingly. By accordingly, I mean reference the headline that you are reacting to, okay? Begin with that, the headline that you are reacting to, and then go ahead with your comment, okay? So I have the papers for review this morning. We've got the Vanguard newspaper. There is also Guardian newspaper, This Day newspaper, and of course the Punch newspaper. They're all up for review this morning, okay? Let's begin with the Vanguard newspaper. Of course, I'll go through the headlines, okay? Before we get into the review proper. Vanguard newspaper, headline here says, Lulu Briggs dismisses report of withdrawal from tribunal. That you find on the Vanguard newspaper. Lulu Briggs dismisses report of withdrawal from tribunal. Another one here says 10th National Assembly will exploit confusion in APC to produce speaker opposition parties. All right. That's a lot of plotting right there. 10th National Assembly will exploit confusion in APC to produce speaker opposition parties are saying that. TSA frustrating varsity autonomy. TSA frustrating varsity autonomy. Northern governors agreed to power rotation for stability, not because of Tinubu, says Lalong. Northern governors agreed to power rotation for stability, not because of Tinubu, says Lalong. That headline is on the Vanguard newspaper. 10th National Assembly, a zone must not have 2 presiding officers. Group tells APC. Tinubu. 10th National Assembly, a zone must not have 2 presiding officers. Group tells Tinubu, APC. Okay. Atiku, PDP, apply for the live broadcast of presidential tribunal proceedings. What use is that? Is it necessary? Well, we'll find out in course of the conversation this morning. Atiku, PDP, apply for the live broadcast of presidential tribunal proceedings. All right, let's move over to the Punch newspaper. Asset Asset Declaration. CCB tells Tinubu others to submit forms before May 29. Asset Declaration. CCB tells Tinubu others to submit forms before May 29. Well, someone thinks it's, just for formality. I don't know what you think about it, really. We'll find out. Atiku PDP apply for live coverage of court proceedings. Okay, this headline we saw on, we read on the Vanguard. It's here, the Punch newspaper as well. Atiku PDP apply for live coverage of court proceedings. Still on the Punch newspaper. Protest as Northwest backs Akpabio for Senate presidency. Protest as Northwest backs Akpabio for Senate presidency. Subsidy removal spending on petrol may jump 250 to 8 trillion naira. Wow. Subsidy removal spending on petrol may jump 250 to 8 trillion naira. That headline is on the Punch newspaper. Buhari to inaugurate Dangote refinery May 22nd. Buhari to inaugurate Dangote refinery May 22nd. And now to the Guardian newspaper. 10th National Assembly. Revolt looms in APC as members kick against imposition of candidates. 10th National Assembly. Revolt looms in APC as members kick against imposition of candidates. Still staying with the Guardian newspaper. Sudan crisis, we slept on floor as bullets killed people on beds. Sudan crisis, we slept on floor as bullets killed people on beds. Okay. Yeah. PDP alerts on alleged plot to influence outcome of presidential election petitions. That headline is also on the Guardian newspaper. Pengasen Sisla kick against 800 million naira World Bank facility. Pengasen Sisla kick against 800 million naira World Bank facility. Okay. Despite 620 cubic feet reserves, LPG consumption in Africa, world's lowest. Okay. Wow. All right. So from the Guardian, we'll move over to headlines from this day newspaper. Dangote, my refinery can save Nigeria. 10 billion naira in foreign exchange, generate another 10 billion naira in exports. I mean, it's going to be inaugurated May 22nd by the president, as you heard earlier. Okay. And also on this day newspaper, 10th National Assembly APC NWC meets today to ratify consensus zoning. 10th National Assembly APC NWC meets today to ratify consensus zoning. Setting agenda for 10th National Assembly presiding officers. I mean, what agenda are we to set for the 10th National Assembly? And who is to set the agenda for them? Well, if you go through that story, that headline, you click the link, I take you to the story, read, and you find out. If you want to set an agenda for the 10th National Assembly, oh well. All right, and finally from this day newspaper, okay, not finally, two more stories. CSO urges federal government not to disburse 800 million naira World Bank post-petrol subsidy removal facility. CSO urges federal subsidy removal facility. final headline here from Vanguard newspaper. Leadership style responsible for Rivers APC crisis, says Okocha. Leadership style responsible for Rivers APC crisis, says Okocha. Okay. I'll find out in due course what's really responsible for the crisis, if it's leadership style or something else. We'll definitely find out about that. Okay. Let's get into some of the stories, right? Let's see now. Let's begin from the top, from the Vanguard newspaper. I mean, the 10th National Assembly, it's been the talk of the town for days now. The lobbying, the plottings and everything that is ongoing at the moment. People coming to, declare their intention to be Senate President, to be, Speaker of the House of Rep. As the days go by, the intrigue and everything that is building up to that. Let's get into it. Let's just look at the story briefly. 10th National Assembly will exploit confusion in APC to produce speaker, says opposition parties. Okay. The minority caucus of the incoming 10th House of Representatives, made up of 7 opposition parties, has mocked the ruling All Progressives Congress APC over its confusion on the choice of candidate for the speakership and vow to exploit the loophole to produce presiding officers of the House. This is coming as the Southeast Caucus of the Senate urged the APC and the President-elect Bola Tinubu to allow the zone to produce the Senate President to ensure equity in the 10th Senate. Currently, there are no fewer than 10 APC members-elect jostling to become the next House of Representatives Speaker. Aside from the alleged confusion in the APC, the opposition parties have 181 members-elect compared to APC's 179, and so can, if united, produce the leaders of the House. Following the conclusion of the elections, the APC won a majority of 179 seats, beating the People's Democratic Party, PDP, 114 seats, Labour Party, LP 35, New Nigeria People's Party 19, All Progressives Grand Alliance, ABGA 5, Social Democratic Party 2, African Democratic Congress ADC 2, and Young Progressive Party YPP 2. Now, the caucus also dismissed claims that its members were beginning to drift apart with the 35 members elect of the LP, which chose Mr. Afam Ogene as its leader, saying they would vote as a bloc and were still weighing their options on the choice of a candidate. Okay. Now, I'm not going to go through the entire story, quite a long read right there, but the thing is, the lobbying, the jostling and everything, the plotting and everything that they've been doing to get to the different positions in the 10th National Assembly. This is not the first time we're getting to hear headlines like this. The plot is ongoing, the drama is ongoing, and we wait and see. But while we wait, the people who are there jostling for different positions are jostling. But this headline here says, will exploit confusion. Mm-hmm. That's like using the tool of confusion in your opponent's camp, to take advantage of your opponent. So we will exploit confusion in APC to produce speakers. This is according to the opposition parties. Emmanuel Undukwe, good morning.
Good morning, Fosina. Good morning, Nigeria.
Okay.
What? I always say that it's a competition, just like football match. If you see the camp of your opponents are in confusion, you exploit that.
Is that a referee?
Because I tell you, if APC, if they've truly seen them to be confused in the house, they have to do all they can to make sure they neutralize their cohesion. But remember again, there's a wise saying that if wishes were horses, beggars might ride. Those other political parties that are smaller ones are now plotting to make sure they destabilize APC based on perceived disunity or confusion within the camp of APC. That is their wish. If it were going to be a reality, they would indeed have triumphed. But I tell you, it will be as climbing up Mount Everest for them. Because remember that APC is the party in power. They will galvanize, even from the presidency, everything to make sure that they retain the power there. And there is nothing any of them can do. Except otherwise, APC itself wants to sell itself out. If not, there's nothing they can do about it. They can, in fact, as it stands now, it will reach a stage where APC could now rein them in by way of lobbying them. You see, that's what we call lobby, but deeper. We know what lobbying entails in Nigeria. If it were, one thing I don't like is insane societies. Because we are not insane here. We are completely sane. But the fact is that if it's in organized societies, you could see that lobbying.
So we're not organized here.
No, we're organized.
Okay.
We're organized, and that's why I choose to use that. Man, for sinner, if somebody tell you are insane, you know what it means. But you are disorganized. Somehow you can be disorganized, but at least you can organize yourself. Right. But if you are insane, I tell you, you have to go through a process of curative measures for you to come back to your sanity. And of course, there is no sign that we're insane here. So I think let those small parties continue relishing in the euphoria of being able to snatch the positions from APC. But I'm sure it's going to be a tall order.
Okay. All right. We also have joining us in the studio this morning, Ikemejima Igbeye Kelly, a journalist. Good morning, Kelly.
Hi, Faustina. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's really good to be here.
Yeah, really good to have you here.
Thank you.
All right. So, but the issue with the 10th Assembly, and of course, the opposition parties wanting to take advantage of the confusion in the APC to get to the different, positions in the National Assembly. What do you think about it?
Well, I won't be far away from Mr. Ndukwe in his summaries about what's happening in the National Assembly. The 10th Assembly and the leadership. It's not a tussle. I don't see that as a tussle. I see all of this as just initial noise to generate attention and to get reactions. All of these things are normal. The groups that feel that they stand a chance in becoming perhaps in consort to forming the leadership of the National Assembly, the 10th National Assembly, would speak as though they have potential. Every group will not come out and sound like wimps. They would have to come out and sound like, we know what we're doing, we have the capacity to win, we have the numbers, we're going to perhaps snatch it from the majority. But if you look at the majority and some of the things that have transpired since the APC came on board in 2015, but for the Saraki Maradona, in 2015. And let's not also not forget that Saraki was the first-time senator when he won that revered seat as a Senate president. Rarely happens. Now, the Senate also, they have their standing rules that says, okay, we have to consider leadership by ranking. So how Saraki, while the APC were yet to understand how they ousted a ruling party for years, right? They were still gloating in that win, and Saraki was strategizing on how he would take over leadership of the National Assembly. And it worked for him. By the time the APC, they sat down, they realized, Buhari had said, well, it didn't matter to me who emerged as the leaders of the National Assembly. It just didn't matter to me. But eventually, in the course of his administration between 2015 and 2019, he realized that, it was really important that I had a strong input as to the persons that led the National Assembly, because the way government works in Nigeria, sadly, you need a National Assembly that practically thinks, we are loyal, you are our father, anything you say is good for us. That's the kind of National Assembly we have. And that's not the kind of National Assembly we need if we're talking about democracy and growing as a nation. Unfortunately, this is where we are. So, right now you have the APC with majority. The APC learned the lesson when Adams Oshomole was the national chairman of the APC. And Adams Oshomole took it as one of his major assignments, first to see that Saraki did not get re-elected. Saraki did not get re-elected, and he celebrated it. That if he had not succeeded at anything as APC national chairman, for the fact that Saraki did not get re-elected, he was proud of his achievements in office. Oshobole can be very blunt with words, and he said it clearly. That's on one hand. Saraki did not get elected. The next step was to see that those that were loyal to the president and the leadership of the party were blessed with the leadership of the National Assembly. It was very clear. And if you ask me how clear, when you have someone like Lawan, when the Senate will make a statement to say, as a body, a legislative body, this is the stance we're taking. Lawan will run to the president and say, I don't stand with them. That was Ahmed Lawan's practice. That was his style. He would always run to the president. Senate will make a decision today. In 3-4 hours, you see Lawan at the president's office. And sometimes I would say to myself, is it like this guy has access to the president anytime he wills to see the president? Like the doors are always open for Lawan to go see the president. And he will make it so loud. I have no pact with what they have said. I believe that what you are doing is the right thing. I would go back to the floor, the red chamber, and pass some information to them. I think that they are acting in a certain way. So, with all of that they did, eventually won. You would, if you recall, there were a few times when Tinubu, president-elect, will speak of the braveness and the seeming loyalty of Femi Gbajabiamila. And he spoke of him in very glowing terms when he was to get the speakership and how Dogara and Bukola Saraki had done the Maradona and he lost out and all of those things. I told him to calm down. We're working on it. And eventually he became the Speaker of the House of Representatives. So when you have a Tinubu as president-elect, who is not an outsider, on one hand, Tinubu is not also the kind of person that you describe as an outliner. The one that sits on the fence to say, you guys to play. No, he gets into the ring. He decides what happens. So if Tinubu has, this is for hypothesis, if Tinubu has strategized perhaps from 1999 to become president in this age, got to a point and said, if we form an alliance, it won't be good for me to be the front candidate of the party. Let's give it to someone whom we could use to get numbers from the north. He goes to Buhari. He tells Buhari, we can make this thing happen. Governors had a fallout with Goodluck Jonathan, and it became easier while some of them migrated from the PDP and they joined the new formed party, that's the APC, and all of those permutations, right? If Tinubu, who is a strategist, not suspect to be a strategist, the political strategist, he knows the game, right, gets elected today, you mean that Tinubu will be in office and opposition parties that do not have majority in the National Assembly would pull some kind of Maradona? It's very unlikely. Okay. So the fact of the matter remains that while they will speak of their chances, is normal. Right. But practically, it's very slim.
Okay. Moving on, let's get to another headline here from the Punch newspaper. Asset declaration. CCB tells Tinubu others to submit forms before May 29. 22 days before the presidential inauguration, the Code of Conduct Bureau has said the president-elect Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, the vice president-elect Kashim Shettima, and 28 incoming governors must declare their assets before May 29. Other officials, including senators-elect and reps-elect, are expected to declare their assets before June 5, when they will be sworn in. The CCB spokesperson, Mrs. Veronica Kato, told the Punch in Abuja that asset declaration was an integral part of the swearing-in ceremony according to the law. She disclosed that several elected officials had started picking their asset declaration forms at the CCB's state offices nationwide, and that they were expected to submit the filed copies to the Bureau before the inauguration day. Now, the outgoing officials, including presidential aides, 28 state governors and their cabinet members, National Assembly and State Assembly members, and local government chairmen will equally obtain the asset declaration forms from the CCB and submit the same in line with the 1999 Constitution. A Punch could not immediately confirm if the President, Major General Muhammadu Buhari, retired, his deputy, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, and other public officials had declared their assets preparatory to leaving office in compliance with the requirements of the law. Now, the Constitution stipulates that all public officers shall declare their assets and liabilities on the assumption of office and at the end of their tenure of office. And the affected officials are required to provide detailed information, including, but not limited to, the number, types, address, and value of properties so declared, and the date of acquisition, as well as income derivable from the properties where appropriate. The declaration are subject to verification by the CCD officers. Okay. Now, failure to declare their assets as required under the provisions of paragraph 11 of the 5th schedule of the Federal Constitution attracts, on conviction, removal from office, disqualification from holding any public office, and forfeiture to the state of any property acquired in abuse of office or dishonesty. Responding to inquiries from the Punch on the number of elected officials who had obtained the asset forms, Scatter said, "We have earlier revealed that the asset declaration is an ongoing process. Currently, they are already obtaining their forms as they are coming in. However, I can't specifically state the total number of elected officials that have collected their assets declaration forms or their names because they are getting the forms from the various offices nationwide." Now, the development is going on in the 36 states, other offices, as we are doing it in the head office here in the Federal Capital Territory. Hence, until we are done receiving their filed forms and have collated the figures, we cannot specifically tell the total number of persons that have picked up or submitted their forms. Okay, here's a warning by the CCB. The CCB spokesperson warned that any defaulting officials would not be sworn in, stressing that asset declaration was part of the inauguration process. They said, and I quote, "But one thing is sure, no public official will be sworn into office without filing their asset declaration form. This is what is contained in our law. Before the oath of office would be conferred on any elected public officials, they must submit their asset declaration forms. It is part of the requirements for the swearing-in ceremony," Kato stated. Okay, enough back and forth about the asset declaration. And Emmanuel, I'm going to ask you this. I mean, someone who's been monitoring the process over the years, asset declaration, is this really a mere formality, or like CCB says, they have their officials who are going to monitor the process? Monitor if, I don't know how the monitoring is going to be, monitor the properties that are being declared to ascertain that, yes, this is what you've declared and this is what we found on ground, or monitor something else, I do not know. But do you think this is just a mere formality?
Well, I think it's a mere paperwork.
Mere paperwork?
Yes. Certainly, it has to be done. And you know that they mention about the penalty.
Yes.
Especially for the greenhorn politicians. They will want to do it. And for the sake of the penalty attached to it, even the old and grounded politicians will want to go and declare their assets. But you know why I say it's a paperwork?
Why?
Because it's not going to achieve anything in terms of penalty. Any politician, for instance, you know that Osinbajo and President Buhari declared theirs when they started. I wouldn't know whether they've declared the ones that are going out now. But I tell you, if there were any other thing they did, in addition to certain maybe guidelines in the forms that were given to them, nobody will know. Nobody. But they fill the form and then submit it to CCB. So it states. Because if, for instance, there's a ceiling that you don't cross this red line in terms of your acquisition or whatever. I'm saying if there is such, because I have not even gone through such a form to know exactly the specifics that must be there. Now, the president has filled his form, his vice has filled his form, and of course they'll submit. Are you telling me who is that particular third eye that is monitoring them in everything they do?
CCB.
At least in them, and then we've heard that. The truth is that when they finish, Faustina, if I acquire more than, like I said, if there is a red line that I shouldn't cross, and if I happen to be an official, and I have acquired enormously over that red line, if you are close to me, I will some of the things, you write them in your name, you register everything. In fact, all of us here will register and all that. It will only remain that number, that quantity that is allowed for Emmanuel Ndukwe to indeed not cross. Tell me how you will know. Remember exactly when they were talking about privatization of this and that, which later they started saying Atiku was given that responsibility and all that. Yeah. He acquired all those things for himself. All of them. Did he write Atiku Abubakar? The answer is no. So for me, that's why I say it's a paperwork. But it's a paperwork that must be complied. Because once you see there are 20 officials, whether National Assembly or government officials there, and then you see 20 forms filled, fine, they've complied with that order. At the time they are heading off their positions, they also feel, we've made this amount of money, and you and I know that politicians are insatiable in terms of acquisition of property and all that, in Nigeria at least. Now, once they are going off, they will also mention in the feelings, so far, the allowed quantity of whatever they will acquire.
Within the law.
Yes, they will not go outside that. So you can see it's a paperwork. It's not just like you said, it's a formality. There's nothing as for any other person be having a go eye to decipher that these people have gone above what they should. It doesn't happen. Have you ever heard it any year? So I think let them continue. It is something that has been outlined and it has to be compliant, if not verbally.
Okay, all right, Kelly. Do you think is it necessary that we continue this process of asset declaration? Because some people have said it's just a mere formality. Is it necessary that it has to be there?
I think it's absolutely necessary that we have this in place. In as much as we're not quite excited about penalties in Nigeria, because we pretty much cherry pick who we want to penalize, depending on how the person decides to play. And politics is practically at the center of almost every other thing, especially even in governance, and that's a problem. Now, these forms would have allowed the investigating authorities access. How much did you declare? How many properties did you declare before you got into that position?
Okay.
You're done in your service tenure. What are you living with? Now, it's not just they filling the forms and submitting. Somebody has to go and confirm. Indeed, that's what it should be. Somebody has to go and confirm that you declared 5, 6, 7, 8, 15 items, right, as your properties, companies, everything connected to you. We can confirm that these things have been declared. Now you're exiting the position. Can we also confirm to say, well, you have amassed an additional 20. Let's compute. How much did you earn? How much in allowances did you earn? These values do not add up. If your companies, the other establishments, were generating revenue for you, you have to look at the proceeds after tax and all of those things. If you do all of those mathematics, one should be able to tell. Is there questions about the expansion of your empire as to how much revenue we perceive you should have earned from the service that you did to the country and your businesses that are running? If we cannot do that, and if we're not doing that, this is perhaps just a piece of news that Nigerians should just know. It has come. We have gone to their doors. They are supposed to fill the form and give us. We'll collect the form, put it in a file. You know, they will also tell you that they won't give you, if you query it to say we want to see the list, they'll tell you it's not public. It's clearly not public document. So it's for them. The best they can do at this point is not to tell us the traditional stories, but to go the next step, the next mile in saying, can we investigate? But let's also not forget that this is Nigeria.
Okay.
You want to investigate the commander-in-chief and confirm the assets that may have been acquired by a commander-in-chief in Nigeria? Well, your guess is as good as mine.
Okay. All right, also joining us in the studio this morning, Wodi Chimenim Esquire, legal advisor, Pandef Obiakpo chapter, and a member of SIM Media Group in River State. Good morning.
Thank you very much for seeing that.
Yeah, good to see you this Monday morning.
I have a melodious voice this morning.
That you want to borrow for the singing career? You want to borrow it for the singing career?
Yes, I said we are having a cantata soon. So I will borrow it from you.
It's
Good
right.
morning, my fellow colleagues seated here.
Good morning.
Well, Faustina, there are a lot of things. When you look at part 1 of the 5th schedule of the CCT, Code of Conduct Tribunal, when you look at that part 1 of the 5th schedule of the Constitution, clearly the Constitution, the sanctity of the Constitution is very clear. And I have always told people that what you see in the CCB is just an invitation to treat. Something it's not mandatory. Remember, the president, while he was coming in, the overzealousness of Nigeria in terms of seeing him as a righteous being, they thought that after he, gazetted what he had, including 2 mud houses and some tablespoons, some of us, and that we are deluded, believe that if he had not done so, because the law permits that, the CCB said you must declare at entry, then every year you must declare your assets. The question we should be asking is not even mandatory when you look at the paragraphs of that section. And like I said, it's an invitation to treat. The part 1 of the 5th schedule of the 1999 Constitution, CCT, the Code of Conduct Tribunal would have been absolute in terms of investigating, because once there is a breach, they have an exclusive right to sue a public official who decide not to gazette his asset. But these are the slippery moments, these are the invidious way we see our politicians come out to, steal from the public coffers. And I think I have suggested if there is a collective action as to, it's like what is going on now in Venezuela, where some public officials seem to have collected money over the years, but because they have a system, they were arrested. The same thing replicated in South Africa, where we saw Cyril Ramaphosa, the Fala farm. We saw how that came about. They investigated. The likes of Jealous Malema stood. The question we are asking, do we even have the power to investigate? And of what use is this CCB? Look at what happened during the days of Yar'Adua. Even when Jonathan gazetted his own, what happened at the end? So if you have a law that in one way bites and the other way refuses to bite, there is a problem. The same law said that it's not even mandatory for them to make it official. So it's a subject of debate. And of course, over the years, when you look at the jurisprudence behind CCB, you will see that even if you're a Jankara lawyer, you want to exonerate a client who has stolen from public coffers. And secondly, when you look at CCB, is it even under the law? So, we must begin to look at, if these things if we are to look at that first schedule, the part 1 and part 1 of the CCT, Code of Conduct Tribunal, that would have been much more harrowing rather than the CCB. The CCB is like, it's like a dog without a teeth. So over the years, how many persons have been arrested? How many of the public officials have been questioned even after immunity clause have been removed from them? There are a lot of avalanche of laws in Nigeria, but how do we work to implement these laws? The implementers, those at the first column, executive, are very radical. And of course, they have a smart way of ensuring that even when they steal, nobody can arrest them. So for some of us that are lawyers, each time they say CCB, I laugh. You can even it's like somebody who wants to take a public office and you allow him to swear an oath. He said, I will not steal. You put him under the witness board. He said, I will not do like this. I will serve my country with all my strength. And when you look at section 1, just oppose it with all those things. In the next few months, the same man is stealing. The same man is lying under oath. I have said, let us even introduce juju. So that while you are lying, committing all these things, the juju will come. Because there are some certain things you don't do. These days in China, if you're caught, they will kill you. They will execute you for the fact that you have stolen a public fund. It is a crime against humanity.
They didn't use juju there now, did they?
That's what I'm saying. There are a lot of laws. They have their laws.
Okay.
You know, here we are being, sometimes we look at religion has taken over all the things. Even a man who ought not to say I'm a Christian will profess that I'm a Christian. In fact, I will be close to God in the next few hours. If I die, I'll go to heaven. But in those places, there is freedom of worship. Some will tell you I don't worship God. Some of them at the level of atheism there. So they allow you. But here, it's either you're a Muslim or you're a Christian. So if you're given a Quran, you can even lie on that Quran or even under the Bible. So some of these things should come in. If there is a mommy God that you will swear to, some of them will be afraid. So if we can replace CCB with one juju, it will help to ameliorate most of these things. Today, where is Dasuki? The man is moving freely. Millions are dying today in Brunei. People are dying as a result of that same mistake. The question we are asking, how many of them have been able to gazette, what the CCB told them? So when you look at the exclusiveness of that CCB, of course, in law, they will always tell you that, in every law you quote, you say, this law, there is always an exemption to every rule. And that exemption has hampered a lot of successes of how to prosecute most of these men. So for me, CCB is just an invitation to treat. Okay. And until we do the real thing, if we can bring the CCT, Code of Conduct Tribunal, and ensure that those that have fallen short of this particular gazette, they will go in for it.
Okay.
But how many of them will? Look at what happened to Ike Korimado. The Lord did not look at him because the man there is tied. His face, he don't look at anybody. And the judge was reading it out. What we have here is rampant judgment. Anything can happen. When once you're a bourgeois, you can break in. The industry of the judiciary has been hijacked. So for us, we are always careful. Even as lawyers, there are things you don't speak. So, but it is unrighteous. CCB, for me, is an unrighteous law. They should expunge it.
Oh, okay. So, meaning the asset declaration is really not necessary.
It's an invitation to treat.
Okay.
Even when I can even decide to say I have toothpaste. The law does not conscript me to, you must go to my home and go and bring this thing. Remember, the present president, incumbent, brought 2 mud house in Daura. I was just looking at it.
No, but if he says I have 2 mud houses, it's left for you to go and see those 2 mud houses.
We are all living.
Verify, confirm.
Go and profile him from the military days. The kind of, and you know about the suitcases in the 80s.
Okay, all right. Let's move on. One more story quickly before we go on the news break. This one from this day newspaper. TSO urges federal government not to disburse $800 million World Bank post-petrol subsidy removal facility. The Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, CISLAC, has queried the World Bank's $800 million facility to the federal government as palliative to cushion the effect of the proposed fuel subsidy removal by June, which has now been reportedly put on hold. Though the facility has been approved for the country by the World Bank, it is yet to disburse it. Still requires the approval of the National Assembly before any disbursement. Now, the executive director of CISLAC, Awal Musa Rafsanjani, in a statement issued over the weekend, lamented the nonchalant attitude displayed by the President Muhammadu Buhari's administration towards the country's crippling debt crisis. He said that the borrowing to fund such palliatives was particularly strange, noting that if the fuel subsidy removal process has been suspended as announced by the Minister of Finance after the NEC meeting at the end of April, then the government should return the borrowed money, because what are we taking the loan for? Okay, because we don't have much time for this one. Quickly, I mean, the World Bank has given this facility, and the federal government says the fuel subsidy removal has been put on hold. Should we not return this particular money, looking at our huge debt burden that we have? Should we still keep this money and use it for something else, or we should just, I mean, we're not doing this now. We have the money already, so let's just return this money. Manuel, isn't that what we're supposed to do it?
Well, you see, that is going on the lane of morality. But I tell you, there's no morality in governance. None. Especially in Nigeria. Have you ever seen in the bush, watching maybe through this animal world, where you see a lion sees maybe an antelope coming and he stands and then be looking at it, it will not go after the antelope. If that happens, know that the lion is sick. Federal government needs money already.
But we have borrowed enough.
Wait now. No, we borrowed enough. Is it enough? What's the finance minister?
Zainab.
Good. Zainab Ahmed said we had not reached the ceiling of borrowing. Maybe this $800 million will make us reach the ceiling of borrowing.
Break it.
Now, they said that they have waived off the
subsidy removal.
The subsidy removal have been shifted. It's been shelved. But I tell you, now that all along they've been looking for money, they will prefer to keep this one to use it for another thing instead of returning it. But like I said on morality, what you said is what should have happened. But it won't happen in this country. And what is CSO, or is this CSO or whatever? Yeah. Good, what they are saying is the right thing. In the first place, Emmanuel Ndukwe here, who doesn't mean much, queried why that loan should be taken. Federal government, I don't know how they are going about borrowing.
Or palliatives.
And today is 8.
Yes, it is.
How many days? Maybe 21 days. They will leave. It will be on the head of Tinubu. So you can now see that there is no joy even in Aso Rock. Tinubu will carry a lot of things. They are shifting this one for the new administration. I tell you that particular money, they will not return it. And Tinubu himself may have been making calculations on how he will use that. Where do you see money in Nigeria? The managers have made us maybe borrowers every time, constant borrowers. For me, they ordinarily should have returned that. But if they keep it and use it wisely. But I don't trust any of them.
Okay. All right. You don't trust any of them. All right, Kelly, do you go with Sislak on this one? Return the money. I mean, since we're not using it for the purpose that we have borrowed it for.
Well, the loan has already been procured by the federal government, that's for one. But a few things that I think is necessary for us to clarify.
All right.
The meeting of maybe a month ago and the press briefing by Zainab Ahmed was perhaps just to inform the press that some very VIP persons that they met, they looked at some things and they made certain decisions. The decisions were not necessarily different from what we've always had. For instance, what was reported to be suspension of subsidy is not actually suspension of subsidy. It's maintenance of status quo. And how does that, what am I saying? The federal government already plans to subsidize till June, right?
Right.
That is, subsidy will remain till June. The minister at that press briefing did not say that they were going to remove subsidy before June. The government would always have rumors of people saying that they want to remove subsidy, the implications of removing subsidy. But the government has maintained that subsidy would be paid till June. And the figures are being contested because it seems not just bloated, but it's beyond imaginable. The figures they are telling us in terms of daily consumption for petrol in Nigeria, it's really high. But the government plans, we're going to pay till June. That's the plan. If the government wants to pay beyond June, they have to go back to the National Assembly to get appropriation to back that. Because what they presented in the budget is to cover till June. This government cannot do that. It has to be the Tinubu government to do that. So in other words, the minister was saying, well, these are the things. We're looking at this and they plan to spend $800 million that we have already collected in palliatives to Nigerians. And that's another very ridiculous thing. Because what you call palliative, you give people money. They go to the market to buy food items. There's inflation in the prices of food items in the market.
Absolutely.
So when you give them 5,000, transport to the market is even higher because of the cost of petrol. Food prices are higher. Petrol influences that to an extent as well. You put all of these things together, it tells you that this plan wasn't well thought through. It wasn't at all. It's just, let us do this. But what is important is, I do not think, to a large extent, that this government would execute that plan. The Tinubu administration will come on board. They would have to review it and decide whether or not they want to proceed with it.
Okay. All right. Quickly, Chimene Modi.
We really have to work on the procurement laws and the consumer interest. these are the things that have hampered the problem here. In Comoros, where you have President Azawama, the man came up with 2 policies. And when you look at what is going on today, the same thing in Mauritius, they have to look at their procurement laws and looking at the deficit in terms of today. If you look at what we are owing today, we're almost running towards the way that Zimbabwe is running now. And Asamananangwa is crying now, seriously, because the regime of the former regime is even becoming more better, if not for the the administrative catastrophe that was embedded with that of the former president of Zimbabwe, who was actually fighting, ensuring that the whites leave most of the area that they conquered. But when you look at, I think we need to look at how do we procure most of these things. Today, half of what you own today, the lands in Zimbabwe, are owned by the Chinese. Today, we are still borrowing. And somebody is telling us, somebody who read economics, who should be proficient within the corridors of advising us. Today, we have the economic team. We have the likes of Bismarck Rewane. We have Professor Soludo, who is now a governor. They've been part of this team. The question I'm asking is that, should we still borrow? In 1963, when Nigeria became a republic, when Zik was a ceremonial president, we were about 43.5%. In terms of population, we were able to manage the system. And somebody is telling us that we should still borrow.
Okay.
Go and look at what is going on today in Ivory Coast. The same thing in Cameroon, where we have Obia. So we must be very careful that we don't launch this country into something else.
It's all right. We'll go on the news break and we will be right back. Stick around.
This is Today 95.1 FM. To copy this tune, press 9.
This is Today 95.1 FM.
For current news and information, press 5.
They are politicians, all of them. They know what they do.
So they know how they attack each other.
To stay connected all day, press 1.
The person who raised the name is the one who made the public know about
Good afternoon and welcome to the World News and World Premium Talk Radio Station.
We are your premium talk radio station. Today 95.1 FM. The station with a unique dial.
Every day, every hour, when the big stories break, depend on our 24-hour news team to bring you the latest. Today, 95.1 FM.
Today 95.1 FM. Port Harcourt. News update.
A very good morning to you. Here is the news update on Today 95.1 FM. I am Kelly Ikemenjima. The Presidential Election Petitions Tribunal in Abuja will today begin pre-hearing in the petitions challenging the outcome of the February 25 presidential election. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, had declared Bola Tinubu of the ruling All Progressives Congress, who polled over 8.7 million votes, as winner of the election. The commission declared that Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party came second with about 6.9 million votes, while it announced the Labour Party's Peter Obi as the second runner-up with a little over 6.1 million votes. But Atiku, Obi and some other parties reject the results announced by INEC and had approached the Presidential Elections Petitions Tribunal to annul Tinubu's victory. It is expected that at today's proceedings, the court will not do much aside from scheduling the hearing, the number of witnesses, how many minutes the witness will use, and how to admit the documents. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, and its presidential candidate in the just concluded presidential election, Atiku Abubakar, has filed an application for an order to allow the live coverage of the daily court proceedings on the case they brought against the president-elect Bola Tinubu, which begins today. Atiku made the call in a motion by his legal team led by Chris Uche. The former vice president and two-time presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party says the petition is a matter of national concern and public interest. They also prayed the court to withdraw the certificate of return issued to Tinubu by the ruling All Progressives Congress by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. Meanwhile, a spokesperson for Bola Tinubu, Bayo Onanuga, is warning the jaw of the People's Democratic Party and the Labour Party to stop blackmailing the judiciary. Onanuga alleges that both parties and their surrogates, whom he describes as lawyers, clerics and some ethnic groups, have mounted a desperate campaign for the postponement of the inauguration of the president-elect come May 29. He insists that the 2023 election is the best and the most free, fair and transparent since the Second Republic. His statement is coming on the heels of the commencement of sitting for the Presidential Elections Petitions Tribunal today. Federal authorities are investigating whether the gunman who killed 8 persons, including children, at a Dallas shopping mall had far-right links. The attacker, who was shot dead at the scene by a police officer, has been named as Mauricio Garcia, age 33. Investigators are reviewing social media to look into his ideology. During the attack, he wore a clothing patch with the letters RWDS, which stands for Right Wing Death Squad, a phrase popular among right-wing extremists and white supremacy groups. One line of inquiry is whether he was motivated by these ideals and whether he has links to like-minded people. And that's it on the news update on Today 95.1 FM. Good morning. I am Kelly Ikembenchima.
Talk radio.
I listen to a lot of talk radio.
95.1 FM.
When I wake up in the morning, I need something to help me start my day. Pick 4, 5, 6 has DHA. It helps my brain to grow. It helps me to be smart. Oh, my own milk. Oh, Pick 4, 5, 6, yeah. My own milk. Oh, Pick 4, 5, 6, yeah. My own milk. Oh, Pick 4, 5, 6, yeah. My own milk. Oh, Pick 4, 5, 6, yeah.
La 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 la.
Smart mama.
Yes.
What are you making?
I'm making breakfast plus Peak 456 growing up milk.
Breakfast plus Peak 456 growing up milk.
It is fortified with DHA to support brain development.
Tell me more.
Cereal, pap, just name it. My kids love it with Peak 456 growing up milk.
Wonderful.
It also has calcium, vitamin D, and high quality protein to make your kids grow strong.
I love it. I will start nourishing my children with Peak 456 growing up milk, fortified with DHA to support brain development.
That's right.
Grow up strong and smart with Peak 456 growing up milk every day.
65 times 10,000, now 650,000. 35 times 10,000, now 350,000. So 650,000 plus 350,000.
Yes,
go come 1 million.
They calculate. Oh, yeah, where the money?
Make I calculate how much CBN go pay me this month. CBN, they pay me every 3 months for my dry fish when I dey export.
CBN? As how now?
Now for inside CBN RT200 program under the non-oil export rebate scheme.
Madam Flo, so you don't have money quite, you not tell us. But you know go let me and my fish rest every time. Your fish done ready.
Now I want to ask you, Seth, your fish done ready?
Hey, no, me Seth want to make CBN pay me.
Yes, so now Central Bank of Nigeria with joint body from Bankers Committee. Now him bring RT200 program come to do make foreign money show for ground to stop shortage and make sure say money